We're going to go ahead and get started with our first panel. Our first panel for today, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015, first panel of the Delaware Economic Summit, is one that I've really been looking forward to. And your moderator for this is going to be Frank DeSantis. And we did our best to pick people as moderators who would be relevant to the conversation and bring a little bit more, but not take over, which Frank fits the bill for that. So he manages the Emerging Enterprise Center at the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. It's a business incubator for startups, and that is his main role right now after he's got an extensive business career under his belt already. So we thought that he was a pretty good fit for this panel, and the three folks that are up here I can't wait to hear about. So, Frank?
Thanks, Todd. He got most of it right. Me not taking over could be a challenge. But I'm really excited that you're all here today. The title, as you all know, is Entrepreneurship, Create It, Own It, Love It. And our panel here is a diverse group of business people with a diverse group of businesses. And just in my chatting with them, I'm excited. We could go all afternoon, so I'm going to jump really right into it. The subtext of the program was, how do you start a business, get it steady, and then get it to grow? And each of these individuals have done that. We'll introduce them slightly different than you might be used to in the past. We're going to start with a brief introduction and then the same question to each of them. And we're going to start with Glenn Fedale of Fedale Roofing and Siding. I'm sure many of you have seen their trucks along the road or stopped in front of a neighbor's house or a business's house, but it's much more than that. Glenn has a property management company, an insurance company, a cement company. One of his newest ventures is an exciting tattoo parlor and TV show on Spike TV called Ink Masters, and his latest is getting involved in the restaurant business. So Glenn, at what point did you realize that you became a serial entrepreneur and not just running one business?
I'm going to say with knowing how a company works, recognizing the opportunities and being able to capitalize on them, realizing that you're more of a manager or more of a creator than an operator. Just taking a situation, being able to refine it. You know, you go back to kind of mergers and acquisitions kind of thing where you recognize a business that could have a strong potential, but it's lacking in some areas. And whether it be a company that you're working for already or whether you see it's a company that's already operating, you just see ways of improving it.
Great. We'll come back to some of that because you did exactly that, leverage some of that as you've grown. Next on the panel, we have Alex Pyrrhus, who is a colorful character, has been involved in a lot of different things. He's an attorney, he's a banker, and he's the head of Highway 1 in Dewey Beach, which is a multimedia company that's involved with music venues, bars, restaurants, and lately music festivals. So Alex, the same question to you. It's a long road from an attorney to all of the things you're involved in now. How did that path develop for you?
I like money. And if you want to live really well, it takes a lot of money. So that's my motivation. I want to be free. I don't like people to tell me what to do, and I don't really like controlled by others. So it takes a lot of money. So I keep changing my goals and my careers and my businesses. Keep the good ones, because they make a lot of money or they have some spark to them and not the other ones go. So it's mostly just a search for freedom, to me anyway.
Great. We'll come back to that one too. I like that. And Matt Haney, he's a partner right now of Molecular Imaging Services International, but started physical therapy a few years ago, grew it into 14 locations and over 250 employees. Eventually sold it out. Glenn had mentioned mergers and acquisitions. Sold it out and then got involved with Molecular Services International, which itself is an interesting story. That was acquired by Cardinal Healthcare. They then formed Occupational Health Services of Delaware, which was and then acquired Christiana Care's Occupational Medicine Division, and has a lot of great things going on. Same question, Matt. You seem to just keep moving from one deal to another.
I would iterate what Glenn and Al said again, especially what Al said. I like being my own boss, and I think that's a big piece of it. When we built Pro, we built it in a partnership, and as we grew Pro, we realized that we were either going to have to bring on additional financial partners or we would look to exit through private equity. So we did a deal with a private equity firm, and I took a position on their board of directors, and I was their chief merger and acquisition and integration officer for all the companies we acquired. I learned quite a bit through the private equity firm about acquiring medical practices. And when I exited that platform, we moved on to a couple other acquisitions, and we build them and get to the point where we either bring a financial partner on and move on, or we combine it with another business. But the thrill of the deal I really like, but I also like building a team. I grew up playing sports, so everything we do has a sports analogy to it. So we love to build a team, we love to compete, and I hate to lose. So we love to win, and that's what we're doing in our businesses.
Okay. So we've heard about being in control, liking to win. Let's play on that sports analogy, and I'll come back to you, Matt. What do you look for in a team? What part of the team helps make a business successful?
Well, being in healthcare, it's a service industry. We're touching people all the time. So I think that Pro was so successful because we were the provider of choice because we had the best clinicians. And, we all recognized our strengths and weaknesses, and we played to everybody's strengths and complemented our team. And everybody knew their role in the team, which is important. It's important that everybody knows their role within the structure of the team. If everybody wants to be chief, that's a problem. When people know and like their roles and are appreciated for their roles, I think you get the best out of them. And being able to build a physical therapy company in an environment where we let the therapists do what they do, we took care of the business needs, and we made sure that we had our hands on the needs of the community and made sure that we hired and recruited a team for that. And then constant team building, constant communication with our staff, making sure that everybody understood the expectations. Even when they came in, a very rigorous training and onboarding process so that expectations were set from day one. And, a lot like building a sports franchise, identifying your needs, identifying the right players, and in our case it would be the physical therapist or the complementary staff. And that's the same model we've used in the nuclear cardiology world and the occupational medicine world.
Great. So again, different roles for different people, but Glenn, I know you shared with me some thoughts around setting those expectations. When you go in and acquire a company, and you've done that several times, can you talk to that setting expectations piece?
Well, I think one of the worst mistakes that could be made is when you see something that's wrong, just trying to subtly fix itself, or obviously letting it go. Setting that bad precedent from the beginning is like with anything. It's going to develop a bad culture there, and that's one of the most important things about building a business is developing that good culture, nipping stuff in the bud, and just kind of putting it together the way that you want it to grow. And these things, a lot of these things, like the nice woman that spoke before us, she kind of caught that with the emotional intelligence to a T. I mean, it's just a matter of really, really setting that expectation from the beginning and leading by example, of course.
Okay. Alex, you've got quite a few different businesses with lots of people involved with them. Are there different roles required for the individual businesses versus running the entire organization?
I like women over men. Women are better managers. They're better at multitasking. Most of my companies are run by women. 10 years ago, I started a bank, and I stole a female president, the only female president around here, and she's been my president ever since, and we made a lot of money and did a lot of good. She did all kinds of things I don't think a man could do. So I prefer women over men. I prefer hungry people over intelligent people. Everybody's smart. No one ever gets up and says, you're not smart, everybody's smart. I like short answers over long answers. We have about 600 employees. When I'm talking to someone, if the answer's long, it's never true. So my preferences are women over men, hungry people over smart people, and short answers over long answers. And people who learn how to answer quickly and short answers become very efficient, you know that, and they can make a lot of money for you. So, and therefore for me.
Okay.
That would be my reason.
Okay. Glenn, coming back to you with sort of that leveraging your business knowledge. Some of your early acquisitions were related to the roofing business and that you saw opportunities. Can you talk about how they came about and how they fit into your overall group of companies?
Well, they came about from doing business with them. So initially I figured out who was good to do business with and who wasn't. And then relationships were forged that way and opportunities arose. I think that was one of the things that made it a sure thing to go into, because I was used to dealing with them and I knew how they did things, and there was a trust factor because I was actively involved, even if it be on the customer side or the subcontractor side. It just left a more of a sure feeling of getting into it. I think you could go into it and explain, exponentially about the different opportunities that you see there. But I think all in all, one of the greatest benefits of it was, as you have one company that does good, and like you guys said, we're all in a service industry here, and you develop a good reputation, you deal with the kind of people that you want to deal with. We all know there's certain people that you don't want to do business with. All business is not good business. Those certain things, even if it's similar industries or different industries, they can kind of cross with each other and bring your customer bases up, bring the value of your businesses up, and the trust factor, which is the most important.
Great. Matt, this one is for you, and Glenn just mentioned the value of your business. I find in dealing with a lot of companies that the value of the business is something that's vastly misunderstood. Folks equate revenues with success. Do you want to talk about that, especially not in terms of running your own business, but in looking at other businesses that you might want to acquire or partner with?
Sure. I agree with everything that Glenn said, too, about leveraging business, and I think that kind of segues into how you value a business, whether you're going to sell it or you're going to acquire it. It's market dependent, for sure. In healthcare, corporate healthcare is EBITDA driven, so, it's all about profits. And you have to, when you're building a company, if you know what your exit strategy is going in, and that's something that I learned early on. When we started Pro, let me digress for a second. When we started Pro, we thought we were going to keep it forever and ever and ever, and we would pass it on to our employees. And the reality is we got to a certain size that the employees couldn't afford to buy us out. That was impossible. It had to be somebody outside that was going to pay a high multiple on our EBITDA. And, was it as a platform company? Was it as a strategic? What would it be? And as you learn those things, then you start applying them as you move forward. And, it is market specific, so sticking more with healthcare, you need revenue and profit in healthcare. Healthcare is expensive to deliver. Manpower is extremely expensive because you're dealing with highly trained professionals, licensed professionals. But I think you have to understand what that exit strategy is and define a plan moving towards that. And that's who is the prospective potential buyer, what market are we in, what are the variables that are going to get you those extra turns of EBITDA. So, if your EBITDA is, $1 million and you're going to get 3 to 5 times, you have a $3 to $5 million business. If you get to 2 million and the multiples jump to 6 or 8, look what you've done to your business. So that even helps you drive when you're going to exit. And I've often been in conversations with business brokers and the private equity world and buyers talking about revenue versus EBITDA. You know, and the question is always posed, and I'll pose it to the crowd. You know, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a business that does $4 million in revenue and $2 million in EBITDA? Or would you rather have a business that does $10 million in revenue and only $2 million in EBITDA? You know, you think about that a little bit, and I think the natural reaction is, hey, I want the more profitable business. And I would say, well, how am I going to bring a creative value to that? You know, where's the upside? Yeah. I think I'd rather have the $10 million revenue business that's not run well, that has a lot of upside, and get that EBITDA up to 4 or 5 million. I mean, now I have, you know, I have an accretive value, and I have substantial higher multiple on that EBITDA. And but I think you have to know the industry that you're in.
Alex, talk to that adding value. You're in a tough industry with restaurants and the music venue. When you look at going into something new, what value do you anticipate being able to bring to that new venture?
This is a hard subject for me because I don't think like this at all. Let me tell you, let me see if I can help some of you. I look at it this way, there's 8 billion people in the world, and if you go home tonight and you write down everybody you know is not your relative, you don't know more than 50 people. So everybody loves you is the view I take. The other 7 billion plus all like you a lot, and they're all cheering for you, and you can do whatever you want. No one's watching. Nobody cares what you do or don't do. So now you need money to be free. So the businesses that I get into and the things that I do are all very, very simple, and they usually involve, I practice law. I'm a class action lawyer with my wife. Again, there's the woman, she runs it. She's phenomenal. We do large class actions, and we go for what I call the big hits. We try to do these billion-dollar cases, and every now and then we win. The bank is the same thing. It's basically the lending of money. Banks are very simple. People come in and give you deposits. You pay them 1%, and you lend it out the other end for 5 to 6%. You get the difference. It's a child's game. You could take a small little dog and teach them how to be a banker. I hope there's not any bankers in here. It's a very simple, very simple business. Very simple business. I used to be president of the Department of Justice Credit Union when I worked for the government. That's where I learned it, and I could teach all of you in about an hour. The other businesses that we've been in, motels and hotels and restaurants and bars and all that, that's all ego stuff for myself and my friends. Everybody's insecure. I'm massively insecure. You know, you go where the girls are if you're a guy. You know, I wanted to be at a rock band, our own clubs, and you know, I can't sing and I can't play, so we own a lot of bars, and that's where I met my wife, actually. Actually, I met both wives there. So, so I have a very simple view of it. It's very, very hard to accumulate wealth. I see financial statements all the time, every Wednesday, my entire life. I want you to feel real good about it. Most people don't have any money. Doctors don't make any money anymore. There's 180 doctors at BB. I've seen most of the financial statements. They don't have anything. Lawyers make no money anymore. Architects don't make anything. Most people don't make that much money. Who makes money? The small individual business owners. It's the little guys who are making all the money, and the little women, because you can make a lot of money, you can play havoc with the taxes, you can do what you want, you can put all your expenses on your business, which is what we all do. So last night, this is going to make you feel bad. Last night I was on Broadway to the grand opening of Dr. Zhivago with a friend of mine, all these investors who bought into it, and we all drank and raised holy hell, and then we went to the Rockefeller Center with all these rich, fat, old people who are dying, and got plastered and had a great time. It costs a whole mess of money to do that, and my answer to that is individual businesses, which is where America's wealth is, allows you to do that. Everybody's there was a small business person. Nobody there was the executive vice president of Chase. Hope there's nobody here from Chase. There's no way that pyramid game is going to work for you. Be honest about it. How many people in these huge pyramids get the big dollars at the top? Very few. But the small business people like what we do, it's a very easy way to make a lot of money, and nobody's watching. Nobody cares what you do. or how you do it. Nobody's auditing him or auditing you, or you don't get audited, do you?
4 years in a row, but
They never audit me.
I came out fine though.
All right. Anyway, my concept is this. Do whatever you think would be interesting to do. You're smarter than you think you are. Nobody cares. Nobody stops you. And I want to leave you this one big concept. It's very, very important. Very, very important. All wealth is created on credit. Nobody really has any money. So when you're driving down the street and you see those banks, it's a big building full of money. That's your buddy. That's who you should be sleeping with. That's where the money is. And it's the most important relationship other than the person that you're in love with. And the idea that people don't meld with the bankers, this is our problem with my bank. I'm in the credit committee, I'm in every committee there is in the bank. Getting the money out the door. We are dying to lend money. We have way more money. Every bank has way more money than they can possibly get rid of. So they're looking for people to take the damn money. And what's the deal? You take the money, do with you please. We don't get a share of the profits, just hopefully pay us some interest. We don't ask you what you do. It's the best partner in the world. So my advice to you is if this means anything to you, and it doesn't mean things to everybody, some people don't care about money, and I get that. If you want to make a lot of money and be free, hook up with a bank, work on your credit, because this is what most people do. They buy a house. They borrow a whole bunch of money, and that's it. That's the end of the business deal for their whole lives. They own a house. Big deal. Big deal. At the turn of the century, 50% of people own their homes. You're not doing anything all that creative. You're borrowing money from the bank. So if you want to be wealthy, borrow a lot of money. They would love to give it to you. And that's my speech.
Okay.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Our mantra has always been the acronym OPM, other people's money. So we love the banks and the creditors. It's the only way we can grow at the rates we want to grow.
This is what happens in meetings. Pete just came in, he wants to borrow $1.5 million, and then the person next says, maybe we can give him 2. And then someone says, maybe we can give him 2.5, we can meet our goal. So it's exactly the opposite of what you think that's going on. And then the competing banks are all calling the same person, trying to get the money to them. So it's not what you think. It's a free country. All you have to do is have a halfway decent credit score and have friends. If you can't accumulate wealth yourself, get a whole bunch of friends. Everybody wants to be in a business deal. Everybody wants to be the person at the cocktail party who says, just like I did. Where were you last night? I was on Broadway with a whole bunch of drunks, right? But what did we have? We get to say we were opening night in Chicago, and Judy Collins was there with all these people, right? That's what people want. They want some buzz in their life, because other than graduating from high school, getting married, and having a child, life is fucking boring. It's really fucking boring. So you've got to do something that makes it interesting. What is that? Create some sense of freedom for yourself. There's a big world. There's 186 countries. Go see them.
Okay, Glenn. I'm going to ask you 2 questions.
That's great.
2 questions, Glenn.
You're right.
You just need a lot of money.
First question is a yes or no answer. And then I'll ask you the second question. You just heard what Alex said. Now, as you were putting the restaurant or the tattoo parlor, is it true that people are looking to get involved in the deals?
Absolutely.
Everybody.
No question.
Okay, so number 2, it wasn't always that way, I'm sure. So the first couple of times, if you had to go to a bank or you had to go looking for money, what are the types of questions they asked a relatively new business when you were looking for financing?
Where's the equity, first of all?
Okay, so what was your answer? What did you have to do?
You know, in the beginning, I kind of built my foundation on brick and mortar. So it was me not knowing what Alex has just been telling us and saying it's actually the relationships that make stuff happen. So getting far ahead, getting that heavy equity and not having anything offered to me, but building slowly but surely, and then realizing at that point that, wow, this is how things are done, that's when I was able to really take off, just to really kind of back up what Alex said. And it was a slower process for me in the beginning, but when I realized, then it was just full-fledged forward.
So again, it's having that vision and understanding that that's the end game, but in the beginning there's a lot of...
Yeah, it's just the blood, sweat, and tears, and making sure, you know, not to overextend yourself, they're going to watch you very carefully in the beginning because a lot of small businesses fail. So seeing that, they're going to set the parameters, and once you're able to develop something with some value, then it's, everybody's knocking on your door trying to give it away.
How about Matt? Similar questions.
Yeah, I remember when we started our business, we all put our houses on the line, borrowed money from our parents. We were just out of college, went without paychecks. And it's funny how your staff forgets later when you're successful and you're making money that, you were the one that sacrificed without the paychecks and always had your house on the line. But as we built equity and some net worth, we were able to grow a lot quicker because the banks were our friends, for sure. If we could open, if we had a process where we could open one clinic, and now all of a sudden we had the capital to open 3 or 4 at the same time, look at the growth, and we already had that, map to make that work. And now later on with the experience, I think that it's really important that you do want, there's so many deals out there. The hardest thing I had to learn to do was say no. And after I lost a lot of money in a bunch of different deals, I learned to start saying no. And so look, if I'm going to focus my time and my efforts on something, let me do what I know best and can make the most money at. Why am I dabbling in this and dabbling in that and dabbling in that? I'm going to take the resources, put them into this, and I'm going to get 20 times that. It doesn't make sense to mess around with that. And I had to learn the hard way to be able to do that. But I think the more you fail, the more you learn, and hopefully you're failing forward and you're not making the same mistakes again.
So it's great. That great lead into the next one is, what were some of those failures? What were some of the mistakes that you made, and what did you learn from them? And I think that's what I'm going to ask each of you. So two of you can be thinking about that.
Well, it was funny when you talk about partners. We sold Pro in 2006, and it was the most money I ever saw at one time in my life in my bank account. And I started divesting into other than normal investments. Got involved with several developers, and then 2008 came along, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, these guys, their businesses dried up, and they didn't have any resources, and they were on the notes with me. But who do you think the banks wanted? They didn't have any money, and I think that picking the right partners is extremely important when you're moving forward. And who do you need? Who don't you need? I mean, you're going to be less selective early on when you need somebody, but later on, you have to be really selective about that process. And so they were some bad decisions I made after experience. I mean, even in growing our business, I remember that, we divested into another business, and it didn't do well at all. We almost lost the whole business over a pediatric business we tried to get into because it was a different animal than adult outpatient orthopedic and sports medicine physical therapy. And we thought we could make it work. And then ultimately, I didn't learn my lesson today because I have resources. And I thought that I could apply normal business practices to
Stay over there.
thoroughbred horsepower. Yeah, as another friend of mine says, I have things that eat gas, not grass. I should have probably gone that way. But anyway, we enjoy living on our farm and have a lot of fun with that. But you can't expect it to be a business.
Glenn, tell us about one of your less than successful ventures, and what did you learn?
Well, I think there's always little fallbacks in anything you do, and you realize you maybe should have done a little bit different. But thankfully, there hasn't been anything detrimental. I think we all have that time where, like you said, 2008, where we're buying, and even though the market's on its way down, they can't go any further, it still goes down more. And you say, I should have waited, 6 months to do that. I think the biggest thing is just making sure it's not detrimental to the whole business health. One's not dependent on the success of another. Every step of the way, you're making money. It's you go in, you say, this is what it's going to cost. This is what we're going to come out with, and it's not going to need to feed this one. It's kind of the way, easy outline of I've always done things.
Return on investment of every business, every project.
Absolutely.
Alex, how about you?
No, I lose more than I win. But
Buy a horse?
I don't know. I think most people are lovely, and most people are fun. And I honestly, I've always had this theory. When you're in high school, you're in love with 10 different people. I could have married any one of 10 different girls, and I just feel like I'll try anything, and I've lost a lot of. I was in college. I went to 4 different colleges, and I was at one college, and I had this idea of let's do a girls' calendar, the best looking girls, and then we'd get to interview them all, and then we'd hook up and we'd do the calendar. So I ordered 10,000 copies of the calendar of these 10 hot girls, and nobody wanted the calendar, So that was the beginning of many, many losses. I lost money in some motels and some hotels and some land, and I built some ski resorts in Maine. I still have some stuff up there. That was a disaster. Massachusetts was a disaster. We went to Costa Rica to get into the bar business. We can't speak Spanish. It was a disaster. The women in the partying, though, the women in the partying is first class. Telemundo and all that place. Anyway, I've tried a lot of stuff. I don't take myself seriously, and I don't take all of that seriously. I don't look at it that way. I try. There's things we're doing right now. I have a place in the water in Dewey called Ivy. We've never made any money, 15 years. I just like it. Why? I don't know. I feel like Mr. Big Pants when I'm there, and I can buy food and drinks for people and look at the water. I've never made any money. So, but the bottle and cork I've had for 30 years, and I've never made so much money in my life. Why? Because everybody's lonely, and they go there on Saturday, and they're trying to find somebody, and that's the business we're in. But my answer about losing is, my wife and I have done a lot of class action cases, and we've lost almost all of them. I think losing is very, very healthy. I really mean that. I think taking a beating, getting up in the morning and taking a beating, taking a thrashing, taking a real beating is really, really healthy for you. It's very encouraging to just keep losing and getting up every day and saying, well, at least I don't have leprosy. Try to find something good. Try to find something good about the day. And this is a true story, and this is all you need to know about losing. I had a beautiful wife and a beautiful family, and we're at the Jazz Festival in New Orleans, and my wife's there with 9 of her girlfriends. This is how stupid I am, and me. So they all get together, and they say, "We got something to tell you. I don't love you anymore," and I brought my girlfriends down for support. So, because me, I'm saying, well, we're going to stay for the festival, though, right? So I'm at the festival, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, my life's a mess. My wife's leaving me. It's really difficult. And I'm walking along, and a little bit of drunk, a little bit of stoned, and I used to teach university for a long time, and a student came along, a very good-looking girl, and she said, I know it's you. I know it's you. I told my sisters, I knew it's you. I knew you were going to be here. You come every year. I know it's you. And I said, I'm having a really bad day. My wife is leaving me. My life's confusing. And she said, I know, but I know it's you. So that was my second wife, and I'm still married to her. So, and she's lovely. So losses are great. And my answer is, taking the beating from my first wife and taking it that way was good for me.
Okay. I was going to follow up on Matt. Matt introduced partners.
That's a true story. That's 100% true story. And they're friends, mind you. They're friends.
Matt introduced the notion of partners and picking the right partners. And so we heard Alex's take on partners. Glenn, do you have different partners in each of your ventures? And what are your thoughts on the good and the bad of partnerships?
Yeah, I have partners in my different businesses, and I mean, there's a lot to cover, but I guess first off, make sure you can get along with them. You can spend a lot of time with them. You're married to them, essentially. Speaking of marriage, so it's somebody you're going to have to spend a lot of time with and put up with all the time. Going into it, always weigh the costs of, the risk, what you stand, what you have to offer, what they have to offer. I usually try to make sure that on my end, it's more money than time. I never go into something saying, well, I need a new full-time job because I'm going to help manage this, because that's the last thing I need. And that'd be setting expectations way past what I'd actually be able to deliver. And then seeing, basically just living with them essentially for a while and making sure everything's going to work, making sure that they're able to control it the way that I would want it controlled. And just it's all about the experience. Anybody can pitch something. You can have vague dealings with somebody and not really know exactly how they do things, but ultimately it's that hardcore experience.
Okay, so it's knowing that you can get along, knowing that they've served the right roles, but as in Alex's case, sometimes it doesn't work out. What happens when the partnership ends? We'll talk about an exit strategy. Is there an exit strategy out of partnerships? Matt?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think, first of all, you want to make sure that you can resolve conflict within a partnership. And when the partnership ends is for one of two reasons. Either you cannot resolve conflict, so the relationship's going to be over, right? Or that you both agree that you have a better opportunity and you're going to move on, whether you sell the business or bring another investor in or whatever the case may be. But I think that, I'm a control freak. So I like to be in control. So I don't mind partners as long as I still have the hammer, or an equal partner. So I've had the same business partner since 1986. He was my college roommate, and we fight like brothers. And I didn't know him until we got to college, and then we went to PT school together. I went to Philadelphia College of Pharmacy and Science. We were the only PTs in the house with a bunch of pharmacy majors. So there wasn't enough bedrooms for everybody. So everybody said, "Well, you're the two PT majors, so you guys got to stay in the same room." So we became really good friends through that process, and we fought like brothers, and we're very different. But much like a successful marriage, he does all the crap that I can't stand doing. He's a lawyer also, MBA in finance, and I'm more of a people person. I like to build the team. I like to have the relationships. He don't like that stuff. He likes to dot the I's and cross the T's, so it's worked really well. But I can tell you we've had knockdown, drag-outs, fist fights. I mean, we have had like brothers, but we've always been able to resolve conflict and move forward. So I think that's really important. But from the other businesses that I had that didn't do well, I'm much more selective of who I would partner with going forward. But I think it's important. One more thing to what Glenn said is if you're going to diversify into other businesses, it's nice to have people have an equity stake. It's rewarding to me when they do really well. So if we're doing good as a business and they do well, I'd love to make new millionaires. I love it. Partner with me, and if you do well and I do well, you're going to make a lot of money. And I think that's a part of the business you can wind up and let them go in, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We've talked a lot about people, and especially as you get a diverse group of people and groups of businesses. How do you manage it? You touched on it a little bit, Glenn, with your partners having more of the control of it. But how do you manage a bunch of different businesses?
Well, I think Matt touched on it pretty well. Finding a partner to complement your skills and strategies, by taking a lot of stuff you don't like to do. I think one of the biggest things would be dashboards. You have to know the lifeblood of your business. And if it's multiple businesses, you have to know what's going on a consistent basis. You can't take off for a month and just come back expect for things to be fine. Not that they wouldn't be fine, but it's just important that your partner knows that you're paying attention to stuff too, because human nature is people are going to drift off. People are going to think, oh, well, it's doing okay, so we're just doing fine. You got to keep that as a motivating factor. And then, of course, what Matt said, incentive. That's everything. That's what we all work for.
Alex?
What was the original question?
The original question is you've got multiple businesses, multiple people involved with those businesses. How do you control that?
The answer is women, right?
I think everybody has tremendous amount of energy, and you can do a lot more than you're doing. I think there's just decisions that have to be made. I don't like television. I have no idea what's on most of the time. I don't like a lot of things that suck up a lot of time. And I always ask people, what do you do the other 8 hours a day when you're not sleeping and you're not at work? And that's what I do in most of my interviews with people. And what people tell me about the other 8 hours tells me pretty much whether they will work out for us. But the partnership issue that you mentioned and the failure issue and the where you go issue all tie together. I think most people are in one of two camps. I really don't like work, and I don't really want to get involved with work. I like my personal life, i.e. the children or where they live, and they don't really want to be in business. You know that. There's a lot of people, they don't have any intention of ever getting involved. And then there are people who do want to be involved with it, do want to make money, and do want to see the world and all that. And you'll find that for that second group, it's pretty much the people who work the hardest win the most. I'll give you a good example. The most famous people in music today, the most famous person in the country is a guy named Corin Capshaw. And he got into business 20 years ago with Dave Matthews, who played at one of his clubs in Virginia. Anyway, he's turned it into a monster. If you go to Billboard for the 100 most powerful people in the world, he's always number one, number two. He's a partner of mine in the music festival I'm doing, country music festival. And I could text him right now. He's got 300, everybody in country and everybody in music, Fish, Dave Matthews, name them all, he manages all of them. I could text him right now and he texts right back. I've never met anybody who works so hard, so I always feel embarrassed when I'm around him because he works harder than anybody I know. My other partner is Live Nation, and the guy who runs Live Nation is just like that. They're just excessively hard workers. Not all that smart, just hard workers. So I think if you look at yourself, there's nothing wrong with you. Everybody gets up in the morning and does the same thing, right? You get up, what do? You go to the bathroom. Everybody does the same thing. You go to the bathroom, and then you look in the mirror, and it's the same person as the day before. So everybody starts out the same, and I think partners are that way. I think businesses are that way. And I think, and I'm trying to answer your question, I think whatever you want to do, there really is nobody stopping you. Now, I know some people don't care for business, so that's fine. But if you do, you know, there's so many things that you can go into. And like you said, you get hit all the time with ideas. Pick the things that you might find interesting. We met a kid here just a little earlier, had a good idea. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I don't know how else to approach that. Were you looking for something more specific?
No, we're looking for perspective right now. Although, Matt, I think we're getting ready to open it up to questions. But Glenn mentioned dashboards and metrics is near and dear to my heart. When you've got different businesses, are the metrics the same? You mentioned earlier that it's not necessarily all about the revenues. It's about the EBITDA. Does each business have a different set of metrics that you look at?
Yeah, I think you have to determine what the drivers are in your business. What drives profit? You know, at the end of the day, what drives revenue? What drives profit? You know, just like in any business, it's all about productivity, right? I mean, your bars and restaurants need to be filled up. Your guys need to be constantly busy, right, with a constant pipeline of work. And it's the same thing for us in healthcare. They have to be busy. If I'm paying a physician or I'm paying a physical therapist and they're 50% productive, you know, that hurts profitability. And how do you know that? Well, you have metrics that drive that. And if you are going to grow a business, you have to have levels of management below you that are competent. And the only way they're ever going to be able to do that is to understand the metrics that you're driving your business by, and they have to be able to enforce those metrics. For us, you open up these PT clinics get busier, and you say, well, how do I know when to hire the next therapist? We have metrics for that. You know when to hire the next therapist. You know, when you're doing your budget, it's all metric driven, you know. And for us, it all comes back to, you know, productivity, and then everything flows from there. But in every business we've done, that's why the horses aren't successful. There's no real good metric other than luck to apply to that. So, true,
music
right?
to my ears. I mean, my companies will tell you that.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
This does help. People ask me, how do you keep track of it all? Every Monday, I ask everybody to do a one-page summary of each manager of what they, from last week, what bothered them and issues that they see. Some people are really efficient. I get little, just very small things. And I always feel like for those people, they don't need me for another week, and that's fine. Some people are just, you know what I'm talking about. We have managers who just everything's a crisis. And you got to teach them that, no, it's not really. There's not that many issues every day. Banks the same way. I have 30 employees at the bank. I'm CEO of the bank. And there's usually like an issue a day, you know, an issue every other day. And some of the times there's none. So I don't think so. I think most people are smart. I think I could take everybody at this table. We could go start a business. We could do very well. You'd all be relatively happy. And I don't think you need, you know, Buffett's got 84 businesses that he runs. And I met the guy, and Christ, he's half paying attention. You know, he lives in this shithole in Nebraska and outside of Omaha, and he's half paying attention. But he's very good at bigger metrics, which is See's Candy makes a lot of money. He likes to eat See's Candy. But you never see photos of him in See's. He hasn't been in See's Candy in years. He doesn't go into various businesses that he doesn't need to be involved with. And I think that's very true. I once asked Corin, how do you manage 250 different acts around the world? And he says, I just look for the problems. Who's upset? Tim McGraw is very upset with him, so he's at ACMs this week with Tim McGraw, trying to make Tim happy. Everybody, where's the other 249? Does that help?
That's really great. It's about focusing on the drivers, focusing on the problems and solving those. The profit, the sales, they're the end game. It's the things that you can focus on that makes it work. Let's open it up some questions. Got one over here.
Had to be on the other side of the room, didn't it?
Well, we wanted to get you centrally located.
You're in good shape, Mark.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for coming out today. My name's Chloe Diamond. I guess my question is, being in the service industry, knowing that there are so many young, fresh out of college students, what type of advice would you give to the millennials of today coming in and wanting to start their own lives in the business world?
We could all go into that.
I have quite a few.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I have 3 teenagers. Well, no, I have a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old. So that's something I talk to them all the time about. How many people graduated with a college degree and are actually working with that degree today? You know, it's pretty good. So about half the room, right? You know, I'm a physical therapist by trade. I have a master's degree in physical therapy. I haven't treated a patient in 10 years, or 15 years probably. I think the most important thing you can do in your first job is just get experience. Get experience, learn work ethic, learn how to manage your time, learn of your role in that company, and learn where you can provide the best value to that company. And if you get to the point where you've hit a ceiling with them, you've got the tools, move on to the next job. We always talk about this with our clinicians and all the businesses I have. The average new grad stays in their original job for 2 years. That's it. And it's for 2 reasons. Either they don't have the upside, or maybe they got married and they got their spouse got relocated. But usually it's because they didn't have upside. And you know, I think that's the most important thing I could say is just get a job and start working. Even if it's not the ideal job, that experience may help you later land the ideal job.
Gee, Glenn, how did you get in the roofing business? Tell us.
Well, I think that goes to kind of my opinion on that. And I think I have quite a few people that work for me that no matter what they went into, they would be awesome at. And that's because they're problem solvers. And that is how I trained myself to be from the beginning. Everything's got to be solution-based. And when you're coming with that, you add such value to the business that you're in, whether you own it or whether you work for somebody.
Yeah, like Alex was saying, you know, that person who everything's a disaster versus that person who's always looking for the answer and coming to you with the solution.
The disaster people are good too because they have emotion and passion. They're great too. I mean, everybody's great. And to answer your other question, I'll tell you what I told my daughter, who's a millennial, which is stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. Nobody thinks about you at all. Anybody in this room today thought about anybody you went to high school with? Really? Honestly? They were the most important thing in your life. You never think about them. Why? Because they're not in your life. No one gives a shit about what you're worried about, so don't worry. Find something that's relatively interesting to you. It doesn't have to be your last choice. This is what I told my daughter. What do you like? And she said, likes entertainment. I said, go to either LA or New York. Get out of here. She went to New York. She got an internship with Good Morning America. She was there a very short period of time. She called me up and she said, everybody's old. For her, anybody over 40 is, old. And I said, so quit and go somewhere else. So she's at another place doing entertainment. And my answer to it is work more than everybody else. Just work a lot of hours. Stop worrying so much. Just go to work. And then if you can get 2 jobs, that's even better. Because then you're not sitting around doing what I think is wasteful, which is sitting in front of a computer or watching television or doing something that's relatively depressing.
Great. Another question. Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to see if you guys had any mentors early on that kind of inspired you or gave you some focus.
Yes, I have. See if you can picture this. I grew up in a really small town, and my parents never went to school at all, not even high school. So I had this image of life, which was nice. They were really nice, happy people. Get up in the morning and you walk to school, and school was like half a mile away. And I had a bicycle, and girls across the street, we'd try to time it so they could walk together. And we're walking to junior high school one day, and up comes this long car. And it's a kid from the high school with they were shaving and stuff like that. I mean, it was a man, right? And he says, you girls all know this, he says, you want to ride? And I thought he was talking to us, the 3 girls and the 2 guys. He's talking to them. And without even blinking, the 3 girls go, yeah. And they get in the car, and he drives them to junior high school. So by the time I get to junior high school with my buddy, I turned to my friend, my best friend still, and I said, "Yeah, I can believe this. This guy from the high school drove them to school." And he said, "That's going to happen. That's how it works." And I said, "What works?" He said, "The older guys take the younger girls because they got stuff. You got a bicycle. He's got a car." So I went home that day. I took the bicycle, and I threw it in the backyard all the way down the hill. And my father, a couple days later, said, "Where's your bicycle?" And I said, "Bicycles don't work. You have to have stuff. Phil says that's how it works. You have to have stuff." So the guy in that red car who came by, who took my girl, was my mentor. I still hate that guy because to me, I had 3 sisters and they did the same thing, and I remember at the time thinking, how cruel that is. The guys your own age, you don't want. Girls are all laughing because you never saw that. You never saw the guy's view of the world, which was brutal. These older guys who were shaving and stuff were taking all the junior high school girls. I never got over that. To this day, it pisses me off.
Venture capitalists are like that too.
What's that?
Venture capitalists are like that too.
My experience was a little different. I mean, I've had some really strong mentors along the way, but probably the 2 people or the 2 organizations that have influenced me the most was I had the privilege of working with Pat Croce because I knew I wanted to be in physical therapy, and Pat's a friend of mine, and I got to work for him, and actually we used his business broker when we did our deal. But there's nobody with more enthusiasm and no one who knows how to run a business in my space like he did. And he was kind of the pioneer to outpatient physical therapy. So he was a great mentor. And then I really had the privilege early on when we started our own business in working at MBNA and knowing Charlie Colley personally. And the culture of the bank, think of yourself as a customer, was just ingrained in my head because I got to see it play out in the early days of MBNA. And they probably are the 2 businesses that had the most influence on me and the culture that I wanted in the company that I had.
And I agree 100% with both those. And one thing I feel strongly about is some people might have different definitions of a mentor, but one thing I really like to do is whoever I get around, the things that they know, just being a sponge. And there's so many people with so much more experience in these different areas than I have, just picking up on it and obviously being humble and learning what you can.
Great, thank you.
I think it's great that you guys are here. In a way, you guys are all mentoring us, and so I appreciate that. So as someone that has a decent career so far, I'm in sales. I've been going for a while. That's not going to be my end game. I'd like to have a second career, maybe as a small business owner, have a local regional impact. So you could once you're a business person and you've done it a couple times and you've gone through one business, second business, and third business, maybe your tolerance for risk is much lower. But as I look at moving into a second career and I want to start my own business, my tolerance for risk is very low. It's very scary. So what am I going to dive into? I don't know yet, but how do you make that choice? How did you make that choice when you guys decided to make that plunge?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I can answer that passionately. In the beginning, it was till the very, very last moment where I got into it, and I didn't dive in head first. I made sure that there was no other choice except to go in business because of the way I lined things up, and it was a pretty confident decision by that time.
I'm not as thoughtful. I'm a risk taker, and I couldn't wait to be in business myself. So, I'll dive in and figure it out as I go early on. Now, I won't do that anymore. But the one thing I'll say, people all the time come to me my age and say, I really want to build something. I really want to get back into business. And the first thing I say to them, are you sure? Are you sure you want to take on that risk? And are you sure you want to take on that time? Because I don't know that I would do it again. I mean, we can do, money's important. Leverageability is important. Knowledge is important. We can get into new businesses today and ramp them up 100 times faster than we could when we first started, right? Because we have capital and we have knowledge. And I think in the absence of that, it's a lot of hard work. And, that's a decision that you have to make based on the other things going on in your life. And I would not do it the same way again today because I don't need to, but I don't want to sacrifice my family the way I did when we built our business. And I don't need to, and I'm happy that now I can get in another business, I can recruit and hire the people I want because I have capital and access to capital, because I really like the bankers, you know, but I also have collateral, you know, so, but that would be, you know, be ready to grind it out, whatever you do.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting what you said. You're obviously a very honest, sincere, and nice person. And that's a wonderful quality. I would do this. I'm sure you got a buddy, whether it's a guy or a girl, somebody you trust. You're like, get a buddy and take just a few small dollars and try something new. Just to get yourself into that second career, something that's not too crazy, just to try it out. Something easy, not too hard. The two of you, the three of us, give it a name. Get yourself a business card, get yourself some stationery, write yourself a letter so you get some mail. I used to do that. I used to write a lot of letters and I'd say, well, the mail's coming in. Favorable, too. And,
Checks are better though, aren't they?
yeah, and try something simple that you can see for yourself if you like the two-front war, you know. It's tied. Do you like to sleep?
Sometimes.
Yeah. I don't like sleeping. So to me, the day's longer and the day's mostly boring. So I feel like, why not keep trying things, because it has more to do with, if you came to me and you had an idea, I'd probably try it with you just because you seem like a nice guy and I like your shoes, right? And I don't think it needs to be more complex than that. Try something and see how you feel about it. You'll know if you don't like it, right?
Yeah.
We've all had partners. Some people just don't like it, and you'll find out that way. And good luck.
Now, I'll do a quick commercial. Right here, tomorrow morning, 8:30 to 10:30, we have an event that we have every fourth Thursday of every month. It's called Newcastle County is Open for Business.
Yeah.
We'll have 15 organizations that have resources to help small businesses. SCORE of Delaware, the Women's Business Center, the Small Business Administration, DIDO, City of Wilmington. They'll all be here to answer questions, and it's a great opportunity, number one, to find out the resources that can help you prepare to go into business. And on SCORE, I did some consulting with SCORE for 3 years, and one of the big things we always tell a new business is don't quit your day job, try it. So I think that's excellent advice.
Being a relatively new business, what do you think it is that you can do to make sure you hire the right people? What are the qualities you're looking for to make sure you hire the right people?
To make sure? Oh, man. I don't think there's... Do you like people? Most people are lovely. Just ask a guy about his mother, and that's all you need to know about most men. And for women, women are just lovely. I've never had a female who was a bad employee, to be honest with you. I just think women are fantastic employees. And but I don't think there's a guarantee, and I don't like all those models and all these tricky questions and all that shit. I don't like that. Sometimes I just interview people and I say, look, is there anything wrong with you? Just tell me. And then I say, look, I'll get started and we'll play this game which we play. You ready? You want to do it? Okay. All right, here we go. It's called, how many faults do you have? I'll go first. I have a temper. Your turn.
I have a temper as well.
I'm very selfish.
I lose focus sometimes.
I get bored easily.
I change my mind too easily.
I like women over men. I hate people who make a big deal out of food. It's just chemicals. I hate to wait in line. Keep going.
I hate to wait a lot also.
And when you play that game with someone, most people are just dying to tell you what they're really like. No one ever asks people. Why don't people, I'm in the hookup business, and I always say to people, why don't you just go up to the guy and say, do you see anything about me that you like? Don't you like me at all? Instead of all this bullshit, just pick the guy you like in the room, or I do. I go up to girls, you know, when I was single, I just say, do you see anything in me at all you like? Just yes or no. If you don't, I'm just going to keep asking. Yes. There's some girl in here who thinks I'm interesting, and then I get the hell out of here, right? That's what I think. That's what I think employees are all about. Why don't you just ask them, and you can tell from the honesty in their answers. Most people are dying to tell you what they're really like because they never get a chance to talk to you about themselves. That's my answer.
I agree with a lot of what Al said. I always want to think when I'm talking to them, do they get it? You know, and that it, for me, I know what it is. I know what I'm looking for in that position. And when I talk to them, I don't care about all the models. And I want to know, do they get it? You know, are they going to be that person that's going to fill out that form and be a problem solver? Or are they going to be that person that's going to create problems or be, you know, making majors out of minors? I think you can tell when you talk to people, but there's no exact science. I mean, I've hired well over 1,000 people since I started business, so you get a little more feel for those things the more people you interview and hire. And there's been people I completely missed on. I thought they would be a star. But for the most part, the ones we thought were going to be stars and the ones we thought were going to be good and the ones we thought were going to be usable or useful, that's pretty much how they turned out.
I like all those, and I think a recap on what Alex did here is raising emotion, and being in business, you should be a good judge of character. If you're not, then you shouldn't be doing any hiring. On the other side of things, what you look for in people, to recap on what Matt said, is a problem solver is key. I mean, you have to have somebody that's going to take this problem and not let it get up to you. I mean, that's why the levels of management are there. And as we find those people, I think we find them appropriate for the different places, and it's essential to the growth of the company.
This is a general question that might be helpful to all of us. I wanted to ask, from your different experiences, what might you suggest to avoid or minimizing any kind of big mistakes?
Big mistakes.
Mistakes,
Make
you
a
know.
few first, right?
Well, he mentioned it earlier, and it's a very good question. You have to have an exit strategy, right? With most things in life, people don't like that term, but you know, the A and the B and the C plan. You know, I think she loves me. Oops, I don't know. You know, maybe she loves me. But in business, most things don't ever turn out the way you thought. Things that you thought were going to be successful sometimes aren't. And I think it's just being honest about as it's evolving. I've had a number of businesses that I thought were going to be wildly successful that just didn't work out that well. And as they're going along, it's hard to say, like you said, it's hard to say, this isn't working too well. We got to think about where it's going, look out for the employees, and to try to avoid a big mistake that way. I mean, during the real estate thing that went on in our county here and in our state, you know, lots of people lost enormous sums of money. I mean, empires of money. Literally billions of dollars was lost in Sussex County. You know, part of it was greed, part of it was we all thought we were smart, myself included. Everybody thought so. Everybody's different now. Everybody, like you said, is trying to avoid that big mistake that really changes your whole life. But I think it has more to do with being honest as it evolves. If you're in a business now and it's not working out so well, you know, I relate a lot of things to love because I think business and love are very, very related. You know, you're in love with somebody, right? And as time goes by, you either get more in love with them to the point where you're just crazy in love with them, or it's not looking so good. Business is like that. Does that make any sense? I thought it made sense.
I mean, I would add to that and say that you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you haven't experienced it, then you don't know. And it's really important to talk with other people that have been there and done that and try to not make the same mistakes that they have made. I was asked to be on a board one time, and I was talking to the person who asked me on the board, and I said, why are you interested in having me on the board? So a lot of times they just want you to write checks. You know, and you know, but what's this all about, and why do you really want me on the board? And he said, well, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you've been in business, and you've made a lot of mistakes, and I want you to help us not make some of the same mistakes that you've made. And I thought that was a good answer, and I agreed to serve on the board.
Yeah, expecting, from the beginning, you got to expect constant letdowns and just know what you're getting into. The only thing that's consistent is change, and being able to adapt to that. That's going to be the lifeblood.
Did we answer your question? I'll be honest, really. What were you expecting? Because you have that look.
Well, it wasn't so much big mistakes, but you know, if you had a chance to go back 10, 20 years, what could you have done differently, all of you, just in general, to...
No, I can answer that. I don't know how you feel.
Or what could you have done better?
I think the world's always better today and tomorrow than it ever was. People reminisce. I'm old. I'm like a real old person, and I feel like every day I'm a little closer to death. And people my age, they all exaggerate their youth, and they exaggerate everything. I'm trying to make their earlier years look better. I don't buy any of that. It was the '60s sucked. It was horrible, and the '70s weren't much better. The music was also horrible. I think this era is fantastic. Everybody has a computer. Everybody's relatively healthy. We have national health insurance. We're unbelievably free. No one's invading us. There's money everywhere. Look how you all live. It's an incredible life. So all you do is find somebody to love and try to find some personal freedom. So I think this is a much, much better era than we've ever seen. And this is what I see people do. Watch this, right? We bring them into and we've got 12 televisions, and then, we've got these stupid zappers, right? And this is the guy. This is what I call Mr. Loser guy. Fuck, there's nothing on. There's like 500 cable stations, which I pay fees for. There's nothing on. He's going like this, joink, 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 and I think, that guy's never, ever going to be happy. Why? I don't know. But this is a beautiful life, and don't worry so much about a big mistake. Believe me, if you make a huge mistake, everybody's your partner. I mean, there's a point at which when you owe too much, everybody loves you because you're tied to the debt. Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people in our community who you would think on the outside are very wealthy, who everybody's partnering with them because nobody wants them to go down. Does that make any sense?
I think you have to expect some failures because you don't know what you don't know. And I think what's important is, are you failing forward? Has that made you better, stronger, more wise about the decisions you're making going forward? And again, I think it's important to have some other people that have been there that you can bounce ideas off of. And I have people that come to me all the time with great ideas. Or even, I got involved in the nuclear cardiology business because my partner in that business knew I was involved in mergers and acquisitions in healthcare. And he thought he was going to buy this business from Cardinal Healthcare at a great deal. And I looked at him and I said, where's your cash flow coming from, dude? This will bankrupt you. You have one little hiccup, you're done. And he just looked at me and I said, you can't overpay for this business. And we wound up buying the business for 90% less than they originally offered the business for. And I kicked in the capital to the business. And it's a very good business today, very strong business today.
Your roles have obviously changed over the years from when you began business to where you are today. What do you like the most about what you do today?
Me personally, I like to get invited to things, and most people don't invite you to much of anything. So you have to create your own events, if you know what I mean by that. Because most people, let's be honest. How many people got invited to somebody's house for a dinner, other than a relative, in the last month? You went to their house and you had dinner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people out of what, 50? What I like now about my role is the freedom and the money to create things that are interesting, to try to make life more interesting for the people I know and the company and the employees and all that. But the role has never changed. I think practicing law, practicing banking, practicing business, practicing music and all that are pretty, as he said, are pretty much the same. The rules are pretty much the same. And I also think that most people want to be recognized in some way. And I think as the companies get bigger, you spend more time trying to recognize them so that they'll feel like there's a reward other than the money reward. That's how I would answer it.
I can totally agree with that. And for me, monotony dullens me. The more I get into different things, the broader my scope is, the more passionate I get about it, the more interested I become. And I like to be pulled different ways. Maybe it's just the way I'm wired, but it just really adds the passion and keeps the passion up there. So that's something I really like.
I like the autonomy to do what I want to do when I want to do it. When there's something that needs to be done, then we're going to do that. I'm going to do that. But to be able to, go see, my kids play sports and not have anybody looking over my shoulder, or to do this or that, is one of the things I love about being a business owner and having that autonomy. And you talked about that in your opening statement, Al. But it takes some capital to be able to do that. But that's probably what I like the most about having, and it's rewarding to me at this point in my career where I can train and have other people that I can go do what I need to do. If when I had Pro, we had 14 clinics and they were all humming. It didn't matter where I was in the world. Everybody was still treating patients all day long, right? So I really like that autonomy.
I think there's another aspect. I think people are afraid that if you find out what they're really like, you won't like them. When I feel like it's really the exact opposite. If I played this game with you for another hour, I'd really get to dig this guy. Because he'd really start telling me all the crazy shit about him, and I'd tell you some really crazy shit. And then all of a sudden, it seems like we're closer to being similar, which we are, and now we can be friends because I don't fear him, right? Because he's told me his secrets and I'm telling him his secrets. But most people's secrets are the same secrets, right? Am I making any sense? So I think our roles don't change. And I've learned a couple of things. You're going to be really disappointed the more famous people that you meet. You're going to be stunned at how dull they are or how one-dimensional they are. I don't care how many times you go to the White House and you meet the president of those people. My God almighty, it's torture. The average senator is an asshole. Our legislators are dull and boring and monotonous. Most people that you meet who are famous are really not as interesting as you are. So what's the difference? Place, opportunity, chance, sacrifice, family. Some people inherit, I think people spend too much time worrying that others are better than them or that they're not doing as well, as opposed to just saying, I'm perfect the way I am. Let's just try these roles, his role, your role, my role. And don't be so serious about life. It's not that serious. Every 100 years, all new people. So when you're driving out of here, go by the cemeteries. Everybody's dead. Nobody cares about any of those people. And you're going to be dead soon too, and nobody's going to care about you. And all those people who've died, which is more than people who are alive, who cares about them? So I think this kind of concept, coming together and trying to help you, if you get anything out of it, just do that thing that you wanted to try. You want to try a second business, just try it, my friend. And it won't scare you. And you'll feel good about it either way. If it works, yay. If it doesn't, nobody here is going to call you up and say, I told you, the guy with the black shoes, I told you. No one cares. So give it a shot.
We have time for one more question. I'll ask.
The community, giving back to the community. Do you have any passions around that?
Us, we do a lot with Habitat for Humanity and that stuff. The stuff I like to do is stuff that's fun. When we can get on site and sometimes we'll deal with like a sports player coming out and helping build a house at Habitat for Humanity. We can, instead of watching him show us how to play, we're showing him how to do something. Or, maybe just events, that kind of stuff, social stuff. That makes it fun.
We have two rules for both the companies under one head and the banks on the other. I don't give anything nationally. We have so many problems in Delaware. My feeling is, why would you go other than where you live? So we give all our money locally, and we try to do it with simple rules. Is it somebody we know or an entity we know? Is just one of our employees involved, or is it an issue that we think could help a lot of people? And we have budgets for both, and we vote once a week, and we try to give it locally. And I know the Nationals don't want to hear that, but my view is, the YMCA is a monster. It's got 2,000 locations. What do they need our $5,000 for? Whereas a local family or a local effort is better. So I think local is more important.
I think it's imperative to give back of your time, money, and resources to causes that you believe in or have experience with. My wife and I have a special needs kid, so there are certain areas where we're really drawn to, and we're really drawn to. I have an adopted son that will be drafted next week into the NFL, and he came to live with us when he was failing out of school when he was 15 years old, and we have really a heart for kids who maybe didn't get a chance because of their environment. And there are things that we're both really passionate about. So for my wife, 23 years, and I, it's important that we find some things that we like to do together, so that for us, it's ministry, and we're able to do that together. But as a company, I always encourage our employees You know, people come to us all the time with, can you sponsor this, can you sponsor that? And we will sponsor people in our organization, things for them or their kids that they're involved with. We like to keep it to them. I'd rather keep it internally with something that someone is passionate about in my organization that's working hard for our profitability, keep it there rather than someone that is you know, soliciting for a great nonprofit that we don't have a connection with.
I want to thank everybody in the panel here. Great.